The client we're about to present is the veteran, the longest duration client that we have had in the room over a period of time. You did take a long vacation though, Cedric, I would say. It was about a decade at least. Vacation. So this is Dr. Irene Grant and my friend and colleague Anton Bluman.
Hello.
And they first brought Cedric here when I think he was about 7 years old. Irene, do you want to start?
Well, it doesn't start there. It starts, it's interesting listening to the other stories who really brought me to tears. He has had a hard life from the very beginning. On day one when he was born, I had diarrhea, and the waters broke, and they did scalp monitoring of him. And I'm an infectious disease doctor, so I was freaking out, worrying about the diarrhea, the baby, and sure enough, after he was born, he came out shotgun. That was fun. And he's been like that ever since, actually.
Well, wait, before he even came out, he was playing soccer in your womb.
Oh, that's right. We couldn't even do the amniocentesis. This is true. We couldn't do the amniocentesis because he was running around like that. I sure didn't. When we finally did get him home, he was pollywogging in the bathtub with me. It was just fascinating. But the second day, he didn't wake up, and I knew something was wrong. So, long story short, he ended up being septic. And he was admitted to the intensive care unit at day 2 or 3. And I've never had such a horrible experience. I was a doctor, but I was treated like an idiot, and they wouldn't listen to me. And they said he's got congenital heart disease. He's just blue. I mean, he's septic. He's perfectly normal for 2 days, and he turns blue. No, and they wouldn't listen to me, so we had to pay $800 to get the head of the ICU, infectious disease doctor, to completely agree with me. Meanwhile, he did drop his blood pressure. He did turn blue. They did spinal taps. They tortured the poor little kid. And I felt like a mother. I would have loved to have just taken their arms and bite them. And so and as soon as he had antibiotics, boom, he turned pink, just like that, in less than 2 minutes. And so of course he was in the hospital for 3 weeks, and I just slept there. I mean, I pumped, I nursed, I did everything, and he was just in that little box. And he came home. But I was always they kept on saying, oh, we want to do brain MRI because he dropped, I was like, what the hell? Who cares don't do any more tests on my baby. If he's got brain damage, what are you going to do about it? So that's modern medicine.
By the way, I want to just interject and say that very recently, I don't know, last year, the year before, Cedric had a sudden recall and said, I remember they were putting things in me, and it was hurting me.
No.
Right?
He was like 5. And we were
but he also said something else.
He came down.
Recently.
No, but this was when he was like 3, maybe he's 4 or 5. And no, I had a total career change because of Cedric. And I can get there, but when he was about 5, we were driving down the hill, and he saw the Tappan Zee Bridge in the night, and all those beautiful little lights. It was like, it really was pretty, the stars, and he goes, oh, Mom, that acupuncture was so horrible. That was just the worst thing. I started studying acupuncture in 1996. So he's born in 92. So he's about 5, and I'd never done acupuncture on Cedric in my life. And I knew, whoa. He remembers that from being 1 week old. Yeah. Wow. So much for consciousness.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. And then...
With unmyelinated pathways. They say that you can't remember things that early, but it's bullshit.
It's totally, no, and I love there's great books, unborn child stuff. And I was very into that. But I was always having that feeling of, oh my God, maybe something's not right. But he was this cute little Buddha. He was just there like this, very quiet, and until he was 11 months old when I wasn't paying attention, and he just jumped out of my arms and hit his head on the concrete floor. And for a moment, I thought I witnessed a seizure. Of course, I'm a doctor. I was like, and then And then after that, he was Mr. Hyper. And then after that, there was another event where he was I had the shopping cart, and he was in the front of the shopping cart, and I didn't see a pothole because he was standing up. And so he his head bounced like a ball on the pavement. And then after that, I guess that makes him almost 3. We went to my sister's daughter's wedding, and her husband was a specialist in children with handicaps, and he said there's something wrong. And he had language delay. He wasn't really talking. And I didn't want to hear that. I just really didn't want to hear that. But as soon as we got back, I guess that was July, August, I took him to the neurologist at the hospital. I was working in a hospital that was specialized in HIV and AIDS, so they had the top neuropsych people. And they said, yeah, he's got PDD. He doesn't make eye contact. And I mean, at that point, I just had a total career shift. I just went, I used to work like 10-hour days. Oh, and I forgot to tell you this. I don't know if this is attachment stuff, but I was very attached to him because I really believed, you carry, like the African women, you carry the baby. So I had one of those things, and I loved being with him. But then my maternity leave ran out. And so at 7 months, after being with him all the time, I went to work. It was the worst day of I basically was crying the whole day. He stood up. He never crawled. He stood up and he cruised around. He never went to the crawling phase at all. And I also knew, that's trouble. That's big trouble.
Yeah.
And at that point, I said, okay, I went to my boss. I said, I got to go half-time. And I was like a head of a department and all this, and I just dropped my career. But I just felt, but I knew he was hyper-vigilant. And so I'm always feeling guilty. I let him hit his head. I go to work. And then, so finally we find this wonderful pre-K. I try to get him into the local school. Yeah, my brother-in-law, who specialized in handicapped kids, he said, socialize him, get him out of the house, get him around other kids. So we took him to this playground, and he was running around, but not contacting other people. He's like a bumblebee, hummingbird. And he was climbing up the ladder, and the woman looked at me, and she said, don't you see what's going on? She said, touch his back. And I touched his back, and he went, ah! She said, you are not connected to him. That's when I dropped my job. I mean, I saw it was really true. I said I was here, and because I guess that's part of doctor training. You're trying to be. That's my definition of autistic.
How old was he then?
It must have been 3, just because I went bang, August, bang, go to the neuropsych, and then he went.
So when was he doing this self-stim running
that was
back and
right
forth
then,
along
right
the
then.
wall? He
That's
would
right
run
then.
back and forth repetitively for the longest time.
Oh, he loved fences. He'd find a fence and he'd run like this. And our friends, we had a photographer friend who said he's going to be a major film. He's going to be an motion action film. And Cedric would look at stands for hours.
And there was also, when we had the occupational therapist come in, when he wasn't using his thumbs.
Yeah, he wouldn't use his thumbs.
So all this developmental things seemed to be very significant.
And when we went to before my brother-in-law lived in Switzerland. And so the wedding was in Switzerland, so we went and we had no sleep. And Cedric hadn't talked yet.
That's called oppositional thumb disorder.
Sorry.
Well,
I know the thumbs are very important in anthropology. It's like the first thing that we did to make us humans. But remember that he wasn't speaking at all, and so here it is.
How old? 3?
Right before 3, a month or 2 months before 3. And here we are trying to deal with jet lag in the middle of the night, and out comes Robert Louis Steven's poem. In winter, I go to bed at night. Summer, like quite the other way. I have to go to bed by day. He recited the whole poem, start to finish. That's the first thing he ever said. Anton and I were like...
How had he heard that?
Because I read to him every night, and I read him. I was doing all the things that I thought mothers should do. I sang to him, I read to him, and so he'd heard that song, and I could tell what he liked.
Wow.
And so that really that's interesting. And
So he took that on wholesale. Oh my God.
he didn't. Well, maybe that's true of him. He won't do anything until he's got it perfect.
Tis true.
That's true. So he wasn't going to talk until he could do the whole thing. But I was chronically worried, and we did occupational therapy. He wouldn't use his. He was sensorily defensive. We had to take showers. We had to scrub him with brushes. We had occupational therapy. We had to get pistachio nuts to get him to use his thumbs.
Did it work?
Yeah. And as soon as he did, his language started to come.
Isn't that called pistachio therapy?
Oh wow.
But it was interesting how using his thumbs more seemed to connect with that speech development.
Oh, it did. And that really did. And we went through occupational therapy, physical therapy. It was.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also went to had him enroll. Of course, I bonded with the woman who made the diagnosis that I wasn't connected to my son, and she became his kindergarten teacher. And she also had worked with kids with autism. I mean, I couldn't deal with the diagnosis. Pervasive developmental delays, and it's an autistic diagnosis. And we went to this wonderful doctor, Dr. Elaine Hagen, who did, what do we call it? Where you hold the child. You just hold him and hold him. And he was,
Anaclytic therapy. Yeah.
I don't know what it's called, but we call it scream therapy. He would just scream his brains out. He would scream his brains out, and we just hold him, and they'd take all three of us to hold him down, because even though he was this big, he was a bundle. And we did that, and every time he screamed his brains out for half an hour, you could tell something really was good.
Gave him permission to do that.
Well, it's awful for me. I was dying. I was just like, she had to hold me to hold him. I couldn't deal with it. And I was chronically feeling, oh my God, I don't know where this is going. I don't know what it is.
It's a little bit like primal scream.
Yeah, it was. Well, I thought it was.
Oh.
But I didn't know what it was. I was just going as I'm an infectious disease doctor, not a shrink. And then after that, what happened? And then we went to, I was always very afraid where to put him. And finally the public school said, okay, we're gonna put him in this other remediation school with Down syndrome. And I went, no, I just knew he wasn't, he had ADD, he wasn't gonna answer the question because he wasn't gonna listen in the first place. But that didn't make him stupid. The hell, something's really wrong here. I knew he mustn't be thinking quite right. There's something funny here. And then you came along with you were interested.
Well, maybe.
Well, wait, what age was that then?
Anton,
No, this
we
is
could,
also 3 or 4.
Oh, 3 or 4?
No,
Right.
no.
Wait,
This is
that's
3.
5. That's 5. This is right
5?
before you. Wait.
6.
6.
Okay.
You remember, it's Barbara, with Barbara.
No, that was 7. Probably 7, John is 6.
Oh, well, I'm talking with Barbara. I didn't realize I thought everything was hunky when you were with Joan.
That's age 7.
So age 7, so that's when we came to you.
Yeah, I think it was age 7. And Anton and I had a common client in biofeedback. He was knowledgeable about biofeedback, and he thought this neurofeedback stuff that his patient was doing was the weirdest stuff that he'd ever heard about, and he thought it was really kind of nuts. But we talked about it, and I think, Anton, did you finally come to a training? Is that how it, before Cedric was brought, or how did
I
it
did.
go?
I came up. You actually invited me to a session with a client, with a patient, and that was very interesting. It was someone who was a skier who had a head injury, and that was actually a peak experience about his peak experience. And I got very interested from neurology, I got interested in neurofeedback. I had been working as a speech pathologist on stroke patients and head injured patients. And I thought, well, chat therapy takes you just so far. And I got really interested in neurofeedback, and I had done some traditional neurofeedback, but then I encountered the lens with Dr. Larsen, and now I'm doing that myself. And I did some with Cedric, and at the time, initially, was it you that worked with him first?
I think I might have worked. You decided We decided that it was not a great idea to treat your own kid, and that you might need a more seasoned hand on the tiller or something like that. So you began to bring him, and it seemed he was very, very sensitive.
Two
patient.
sites of minimal protocol, and he would get very tired.
He'd get very tired and fall asleep. So it was an amazing thing to drive 70 miles each way for 4 seconds of treatment and then go home. It was just like, oh my God. I think Irene thought we were all nuts.
No, I did.
But did you begin to see changes?
Well, actually, we started with Helena, right?
Pardon?
We did start when before you even went to, we started neurofeedback, I think through you or through the Tomatis connection. We looked at tomatoes.
Well, yes.
Oh, tomatoes, yeah.
Tomatoes.
As in the conscious ear. Yes. So that was at the Blue Rock School.
Yes, and it was in there that we
Let
just,
these people in. Yeah.
we just, I don't know, it was a big square dance. one, can't remember exactly how we met different people. But somehow we got connected with this woman who was doing routine biofeedback.
In any case, so Dr. Larsen gave Cedric some lens treatment, and perhaps you'd like to say more from there.
Well, we're going back now, let's see, 7 years. Cedric, you're 19 now? This is 12 years ago. And have a seat, Maria. He was extraordinarily sensitive, but I remember thinking, this kid is a really, really good responder, and there's something in him that is really kind of very healthy. I remember, I feel that. It's kind of an intuitive kind of thing. And I think we bonded. We had a pretty good relationship there. I tend to have a good relationship with kids. And was it 2 years or two to 3 years?
About that.
About that, 2 to 3 years. And I heard, man, he's getting to be quite a little tennis pro. He's hitting those shots all the time. And, ooh, he's taken piano lessons. And he's not so ADD when he's sitting at a keyboard on the piano. He's very much the opposite. He's really concentrating and he's focusing. I remember you were filled, Anton, with nachas. You know what that is? That's a Yiddish for pride of offspring.
I'm only Jewish, you see. But yes, I know the word.
Yes. So he was filled with a kind of a pride of offspring that I was going, wow, this has got real potential. So, Irene, what did you notice during those years when he came for the regular neurofeedback?
To me, it was always like blatantly obvious, but then it would wear off.
Uh-huh.
He would. It wasn't until 5th grade. We sent him to this wonderful school, Rockland Country Day, where they had very weathered, experienced teachers. Who it took them 2 years to get Cedric to be able to sit in a chair, in 4th grade and 5th grade. By the end of 5th grade, he was able to sit in a chair. But every time he did neurofeedback, it was like living with him at home was chaotic.
Yeah.
It was chaotic.
I mean, he would have overdose reactions too sometimes, wouldn't he?
No, he's a tornado of a guy, and he's very creative. When he gets excited about something, but he doesn't, So if he wants something, boy, he wants it. Like if he wants to go play ping pong tonight, Mom, I gotta go play ping pong. I want to play ping pong.
Uh-huh.
So there was a demanding thing, and also I was very. I think both of us are too lenient. We didn't give him boundaries as much. So
Lenient? You weren't.
we were
You were. Oh.
like.
Oh, okay.
I had my sister come home when he was about. I guess he was about 4. It was right before the other one was born, or the other 4 before I could tell him, yes, you're going to bed now. My sister is older. She said, "What? You can't tell your kid to go to bed?"
So, since he can now sit in a chair, I'm going to invite Cedric to just kind of change places with me for a minute.
Oh, with you?
Yeah, with me. And Cedric, come and sit. And he's exercising his newly won skill there. And do you remember any of those days that these guys are talking about, or does it seem, how does it seem to
I
you?
do. They're distant memories, but I do remember them.
Uh-huh.
Should I recount them or?
Sure, or just whatever you noticed that you knew you were changing.
I have brief episodes of remembering when my parents, we'd have a family dinner and it was time for Cedric to go to sleep and Cedric didn't want to. And I would yell and throw tantrums and hit my mother. Not anything fatal, but I would be really upset.
She's still here.
Yeah, and over time I was able to suppress those tantrums at the age of 10.
God, I don't even remember
They
that.
they lasted a while. I would get very emotional and over-dramatize general situations. I still tend to do that, being with adolescents and all, but that's probably normal. And I remember being unable to stay in my chair and not heeding certain social cues on when not to take something. I was very impulsive and compulsive.
Mm-hmm.
That has improved. So.
Yeah, yeah. And then tell us about how tennis began changing for you, didn't it?
In what sense that I began it?
In
Or?
the sense that you just really started getting the hang of it.
Well, it's almost saddening to remember now because I have always had a passion for tennis and I still do. However, when I was around 9, I would play at the Dublin, New Hampshire Lake Club, and I was quite agile and I had a knack for picking up things. They say that and you said that I was able to respond well, and I think I've been able to do that most of my life, and so tennis came easy. And unfortunately, due to financial issues and then random pride, which arose at the age of 15 and 16 because I wasn't having top-of-the-notch Mamaroneck club personal lessons, I quit tennis. And being 19 now and having matured a little bit, I regret that because just because I wasn't playing in professional tournaments doesn't mean I have to quit something I had a passion for and was rather skilled at. But tennis improved my life as a whole because I was using my body, using my mind. That also was very associated with how I grew up as a child and how I was able to evolve. Whenever I would lose a point or there was a critical stage in the match and I would blow it, I would smash my racket. I think we replaced about 4 of my rackets due to ill treatment of them. And I would yell and cuss and complain and all these sorts of things. And I still improved at the sport. And then over time I was able to compose myself in matches because I had idols like Pete Sampras and Andre Agassi and now Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal, the top of the top tennis players. I've always admired the highest form of any subject. Let's say it's piano, for example. I will tend to listen to Arthur Rubinstein and Vladimir Horowitz, and not the mediocre pianists who can still play things technically perfectly, but they're not as skilled as the maestro. And with tennis, I will naturally head towards Sampras as opposed to a middle-seated player. So I always had those role models, and that had a very big impact on my upbringing.
What about piano then? How did that shape you?
And that's almost the opposite of tennis. Tennis, I rigorously train and then quit due to the fact that money was an issue. And with piano, I began at 9. My mother used to be a fantastic pianist. She still plays now and again. And my grandfather was also wonderful, and her sister, my aunt, also is a composer. So naturally, classical music was ingrained in it was something that had to happen. Mm-hmm. So I began, and I was talented at first, and then there was a pattern again in my adolescent stages of development where I didn't work to my full potential, and this was repetitive and a pattern in how I approached high school and middle school and making friends. I never worked to my full potential, and it's almost what's the word? It goes right in sync with my development as a young child at the age of 3, where I suddenly was able to talk, but went through 4 years of not being unable to utter any words. And so with piano, I didn't try hard for years until last year, where I went to this friends list bio by this very eloquent Scottish or English spokesperson. I forget his name, but it had a huge impact on me. And since then, unlike the decade or so that I've been playing piano, I've worked harder than ever to become better at piano.
But you forgot your deprivation phase. You got to New Paltz and you couldn't play piano for a month.
That's true, yes.
I'm
And
right.
I'm in college now, and having not proclaimed a major, or decided upon one, I was unable to have access to the practice rooms and to play piano and to seek lessons. So I've had a piano teacher, I've had 2, throughout my 8 or 9 years of playing piano, and I was suddenly stranded with no one. So I took it upon myself to responsibly and enthusiastically improve at the piano on my own. And it's been more than therapeutic. It's taught me patience and responsibility, and it's motivated me to further my excavations in other subjects. And so in relation to having started sessions with you this year, a lot of our sessions have been what's that when the therapist talks to the patient? What is that called?
Psychotherapy.
Psychotherapy, and that's what we have undertaken, and it's improved my life immensely. And naturally, you'll probably ask how neurofeedback has changed my life now. And I am not sure, but I have seen a significant change in myself, ranging with my esteem and my willingness to comply to the advice that others have given me and bestowed upon me. And I also have viewed the world as a different place. I think I was very closed-minded, and naturally, ignorance might be bliss, or ignorance naturally plays a role in a child/teenager's process. But now over the last 2 months, even since I've been working with Larsen, I have found a sanctity and gratefulness within my existence as a human in itself. And maybe that relates to what she was saying with neurofeedback uncovering something holy within us, or I can't explain
That's a good
it.
word. I think
Maybe.
That's something primordial, something original. I'll just join this by saying that Cedric is really a wonderful psychotherapy client, because my bias these days is to really get people to do neurofeedback, because I think it's so effective for their nervous systems and so on. We've done very little of that. We've done some heart math, coherent breathing, but he's helped me find psychotherapy again. We're having a lot of fun doing it, and he's just such a receptive candidate for that, and he asks such interesting questions and makes such good use of them.
Right after that fateful day, I decided that I wanted to, again, it's not greatly spoken, but I really wanted to step it up with piano and work to my full potential, or at least try to find something along those lines of learning how to work hard with an instrument. So I decided to learn the Ballade No. 1, which was a piece that I was instantly enthralled by. Is that a word? I don't know. I was instantly taken by the movie The Pianist with Adrian Brody, directed by Roman Polanski, and that piece is featured, and I saw it played, and I thought, oh, that's impossible, but that's stunningly beautiful. And then it became a reality where, what if I can really test myself and uncover something within myself that might have always been there, and maybe I do have the skill or the desire to undertake such a project. And the Ballade's about 20 pages of written music, and having a negative way of approaching the piece, because now I've learned in the past mistakes throughout my childhood where I would perform, that was the be-all and end-all of a performance. I have cried after performances having made one mistake, one blemish upon a piece. It would ruin me. And I've learned to fight through that, and now this year I've played for an uncountable amount of people, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. And this piece has taken me about 7 months, and not to perfect, because I believe this piece can never be perfected. It's a lifelong piece to learn and to hear. But I've tried my best over the past 7 months to learn it.
The bass keys on the piano are out of tune, and the piano tuner said he couldn't touch them until he had just worked them way up slowly. So don't blame Cedric for the kind of the stuff at the bass. It's a little, there are some problems in the bottom octave and a half.
So I'll go.
You?
Bye.